This week's top 10 is another one focused on Eldraine. This set has so many great cards, and among them are some really great legendaries to lead your Brawl and Commander decks. That's why this week's top 10 is going to the top 10 commanders coming out of Eldraine. Number 10, Surkera the Bold. Mono Red has notoriously done poorly in Commander, unless you're playing Goblins, and that's too bad because there's a ton of great red cards going unused in people's trade binders. Surkera is finally a red commander that addresses the main issue that Red has in Commander: card advantage. Red has card selection, but many of Red's draw spells don't net you any cards. In a format where games can go 10 plus turns, this just doesn't usually turn out well. Surkera doesn't draw you cards, but between her tap ability and your damage spells, you should be able to keep a respectable number of cards in hand even into the later game. With Surkera, you'll need to test a lot to make sure you always have enough mana to cast the exiled spells, while making sure not to get flooded. Braid of Fire and Koth would be auto-includes for me, along with Grape Shot to get a ton of damage and Surkera triggers. This would still be a tricky build, I'm sure, but she's here because she's a different take on red commanders than we usually get, so I think it's worth exploring her potential. Number 9, Emery, Lurker of the Loch. I mentioned Emery as a spec target in the last top 10, and in both Brawl and Commander, I think Emery has a good shot at doing some cool stuff. I think Brawl could use some more useful targets for Emery, but one thing to watch out for as sets come out is a method to repeatedly sacrifice a creature or artifact. If something is printed in blue or colorless that can do that, then Emery will have a solid combo in Brawl. Emery can tap to cast Corridor Monitor out of the graveyard, which can then in turn untap Emery. If we end up getting a way to sacrifice Corridor Monitor easily, we could keep chaining that over and over, triggering numerous other effects. In Commander, we have a lot of artifacts to choose from. Kodaltha Forgemaster, Burnished Heart, and Mindslaver are some that I definitely want to include here. Number 8, Yorvo, Lord of Garenberg. This guy can get in damage very quickly in Brawl or Commander. At 3 green mana, he can be played turn 2, allowing him to start attacking as early as turn 3. I don't think you should necessarily be baited by the allure of the extra +1/+1 counter on his triggered ability. Having a good number of small creatures will get you dealing damage faster, and in the case of mana dorks, they'll ramp you into your bigger creatures later. With proliferation still in standard, there's easy ways to turn this 4/4 into a monstrous creature. Evolution Sage and Karn's Bastion are the most consistent options, but there's enough proliferate cards to add a whole proliferation sub-theme to the deck. Number 7, Torben, Thane of the Redfell. I had to reread Torben a few times to make sure I was reading him right. In a mono red deck, he basically says tack on 2 extra damage to everything. Pingers, damage spells, planeswalkers, and creatures all get a damage boost off of this. Making Torben your commander balances out the high starting life total in Brawl, and can turn mediocre burn spells into game changers. Both in Brawl and Commander, Torben should be able to finish off opponents using burn spells and damage dealing effects. Torben works especially well with any spell that lets you split the damage. Grape Shot after you played a few spells, and suddenly it's like you dumped a pile of lightning bolts onto the stack. The damage output Red is capable of spikes whenever Torben is on the table, so your main priority is to keep him safe for as long as you can, and get as much bonus damage as possible. Number 6, Julian, Teller of Tales. This guy is one of the pre-constructed Brawl commanders. Wizards really stepped up their game with this one. Julian is a bit tougher to cast than the rest of the commanders on this list, but if you untap with Julian on the battlefield, it's pretty much over. Having a built-in Glimpse of Nature is already a powerful effect, but Julian tacks on the ability to play an extra land for every creature you play. As if that wasn't enough, he can even bounce a creature to your hand, which can prevent the deck from getting stuck after some bad draws. Number 5, Ayara, First of Locthwain. Ayara isn't picky about what you play, as long as it's a black creature. Zombies and vampires are tribal favorites in Magic, and Ayara is the perfect commander for either of them. Her static ability will do most of the work for you, as you drop cheap creatures and drain your opponent while overwhelming them with a horde of small creatures. Ayara should work well as a commander in both Brawl and Commander. Brawl cards to look for with her are Dreadhorde Invasion, Liliana Dreadhorde General, and Gutterbones. Gutterbones works especially well with Ayara, since Ayara's life drain allows you to activate Gutterbones, and Gutterbones can be sacked to draw a card. Depending on how many sack engines and how much mana you have, it's possible to activate this combo a few times a turn. In Commander, there are so many cards that are amazing with Ayara. My personal favorites are Thornbite Staff for repeated uses of her tap ability, Endrick Sar Master Breeder to get a ton of life drain triggers and some sack fodder, and Mausoleum Secrets as an inexpensive tutor that'll usually be able to get you whatever you need from your deck, since your graveyard should have a decent number of creatures piled up from all your sacrifices. Number 4, Grum Dali the Generous. This guy is really cool, because he essentially makes non-human tribal a thing. For this, you can build red-green good stuff, and with him on the field, everything is slightly better value for the cost. He also acts as a lord for any tribe you want to build other than humans. Obviously, he can be a goblin lord, being a goblin himself, but you can play elves, warriors, or elementals as well, and he gives them the same level of support. He's a fun Brawl commander, and even though he's an uncommon legendary, I think he has what it takes in Commander as well. His ability isn't game-changing in itself, rather it builds incremental value throughout the game, and coming out on turn 2 fairly consistently will allow that value to build up before many other red-green commanders even get started. Number 3, Aleli, Artful Provocateur. I played Aleli's deck during Arena's Courtside Brawl event, and it was extremely powerful. I'll definitely be making improvements to that event's list, but I only lost 2 games in that event, and those were both to another Aleli deck. Esper is well known as a control-heavy color combination, so for me I'd focus on playing a prison control deck that locks down my opponent with enchantments and artifacts, while chipping away at my opponent's life with the free fairies. If you start off with a base deck list and are looking for upgrades, I've got a few suggestions for you. Evolving Wilds is a classic fetch land for basics, but we just got Fabled Passage, which is just an upgraded version, so I'd swap those out without a second thought. Shine Chaser just never felt like a great draw to me. If you curve into it early and play aggressively, it's good, but drawing this late game just always felt like a dead card. I'd actually throw in another removal spell, and since we just got an artifact that exiles creatures with a converted mana cost 3 or less, in the form of Glass Casket, I would opt in for that over a situational 3/3 for 3. Lastly, upgrading some of the dual lands could help ensure that this deck isn't being held up by tapped lands. Number 2, Wrinkle, Master of Pranks. If you don't want to have to choose between aggro and control, this is your guy. He's a 3/3 for 4 mana and black, with both flying and haste. That's hitting hard right out of the gate, and the flying helps ensure that you get to use his triggered abilities. When Wrinkle deals combat damage to a player, you can choose any number of his 3 abilities. This might not be the deck for a brand new Magic player, as you'll likely run into some tough choices, and the order of effects isn't super intuitive to new players. But for someone who's quick on their feet and has a good understanding of how to make good trade-offs, this could be a really controlling commander. For Brawl, cards like Dreadhorde Invasion, Eternal Taskmaster, and Gutterbones can force your opponent to lose cards and creatures while you maintain a strong presence throughout the game. In Commander, I'd build this as a stacks deck, always forcing your opponent to make tough choices on what to keep and what to lose. Wrinkle is a versatile card though, and so he could be used as an aggressive commander, only selectively using his ability when necessary. Number 1, Kenneth, Returned King. This one is especially good in multiplayer. If you enjoy playing politics, Kenneth is second to none. Like you'd expect from a king, he has all the bargaining chips. Haste, trample, counters, cards, life, and reanimated creatures are all yours to give or withhold at your discretion. Having a 5-color identity gives Kenneth the largest possible pool of cards in Brawl, and he's versatile enough that you can build the deck pretty much however you'd like. The reason I put Kenneth as my number 1 commander for Eldraine is because there are just so many possibilities with him. No 2 Kenneth decks should be the same, as Kenneth leaves plenty of room to build around a player's personal playstyle. For example, there's no rule saying you have to play cards of all 5 colors even though he's a 5-color commander. You could build the deck as an Esper control deck, and just put some lands and mana rocks that tap for any color so you could have access to all of his abilities. That would improve the consistency of the mana base, probably making the deck a lot cheaper and focus the strategy. Out of all the commanders on this list, I'm most excited to see what kind of decks people put together with Kenneth. So if you've got a cool deck list for him already, post it in the comments. I'd love to see it. That's it for this week's Top 10. If you're looking to try out a few of these commanders in Brawl, a few of my coworkers and I whipped up some deck lists you can find in the description below. If you try them out, let me know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to keep up with future Top 10s.